I stared at the glowing screen of my phone, the message blinking back at me. It was from Derek, my fiancé's best man. "We need to talk about something important. Jack doesn't know I'm reaching out," it began, and my stomach dropped. I wasn't sure what this was about, but I had a feeling that everything was about to change. I clicked open the text, fingers trembling as I read. "Jack's been having second thoughts. He's stressed about the wedding and questioning if you're the right person for his future." My heart lurched. We'd been together for 4 years. Everything had been fine. How could everything fall apart in just a matter of weeks before our wedding? I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the message settling in. We had just gone cake tasting 2 days ago. Everything had felt perfect. How could it have shifted so quickly? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "Second thoughts about what exactly?" I typed, my hands stiff with tension. Derek's reply came swiftly. "He feels like you're not really committed to building the life he wants. You've been together for years, and you still drive that old Camry and live in that basic apartment. He needs to know you can provide the lifestyle he wants." I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I worked hard as a project manager, earning a solid income, saving where I could. My car was old, sure, but it ran perfectly. My apartment was nice, 2 bedrooms, in a good area. But now I was being told it wasn't enough. That all the hard work I'd put into building a life wasn't enough to prove my worth. Derek's next message hit me like a ton of bricks. "If you really love him, you should show it. He's always wanted a Mercedes. If you bought him one as a pre-wedding gift, it would show you're serious about giving him the life he wants." I froze, staring at my phone in disbelief. Was this really happening? All of a sudden, it wasn't about love. It was about what I could buy. A car? I thought we had something real, something built on mutual respect, but now it felt like a transaction. I felt a tightness in my chest, like I was suffocating. What had I done wrong? How did we get to this point? I placed my phone down, hands shaking, as everything I thought I knew about us crumbled. I first met Jack at a mutual friend's party. I had just moved to the city and didn't know anyone, so when I got the invite, I went in hopes of meeting some new people. He was standing in the corner, talking to a group of guys, his smile easy and genuine. The first thing that struck me about him was how he made everyone feel comfortable. He was a natural leader, and it wasn't long before he had everyone laughing. At that time, I didn't think much of him. I was still settling in, focusing on my new job, trying to navigate life in a new city. But when he walked over to introduce himself, I couldn't help but notice how warm and inviting his presence was. His deep voice matched his tall frame, and the way he looked at me made me feel like I was the only person in the room. That night, we ended up talking for hours. There was something easy about being with him. We both had a similar sense of humor, and soon enough, we were sharing stories about our childhoods, about the places we wanted to travel, the things we wanted to do in life. We quickly realized we had so much in common: our values, our ambitions, and even our quiet love for simple things. The more we talked, the more I realized I was drawn to him. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more frequently. At first, it felt like the kind of thing you don't question. It was just natural. Every conversation flowed so easily, and I found myself looking forward to spending time with him. When he asked me to go out for dinner one evening, it felt like everything had fallen into place. By the time we celebrated our 6-month anniversary, it was clear we were both in this for the long haul. Jack made me feel secure. He encouraged me to pursue my career ambitions, constantly telling me I was capable of more than I even thought. I appreciated his support, his belief in me. I had never felt so seen, so understood. I remember the first time he told me he loved me. We were sitting on the couch in his apartment, surrounded by the soft glow of the dim lamps. He had been quiet for a while, just looking at me, like he was trying to figure something out. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "I'm in this, and I want to build something real with you." His words hit me harder than I expected. I looked into his eyes, saw the sincerity there, and knew that I felt the same way. As the months went by, we began talking about the future, our future. We were both ready for the next step. I remember how excited Jack was when he first brought up the idea of getting engaged. He was always practical, always thinking ahead, and when he asked me what kind of ring I wanted, it felt like a no-brainer. We had discussed our finances, our goals, and it was clear we were on the same page. But when he proposed, it was everything I'd dreamed of. He had planned a quiet evening at a nice restaurant, the kind of place I loved, low-key, but special. When he slipped the ring on my finger, I couldn't hold back my tears. This was the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with, the man who had shown me what it meant to love and be loved in return. The wedding planning started right after that. We were both so excited, yet as we made our decisions, picking the venue, choosing the food, deciding on the guest list, there was one thing I could never get over: the pressure. It was unspoken, but always there, lurking in the background. The pressure to make sure everything was perfect, and the more we got into the details, the more I could feel Jack's need for validation. He wanted to make sure I was happy, that everything was just right. I tried to push it aside, telling myself it was just the stress of wedding planning, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was as if Jack wanted to prove something, not to me, but to the world. He was always talking about what we deserved and how people would see us. It wasn't the first time he'd mentioned this, but it was the first time I realized how deeply it had been affecting me. There had been little comments here and there, jokes about our lifestyle, our apartment, our car. At first, I shrugged them off. After all, Jack was ambitious, and I admired his drive. But the more I heard, the more I wondered if he was starting to view me through the lens of what I could provide rather than who I was. The doubts started creeping in, slowly at first. I couldn't ignore them anymore. I was constantly wondering if I was enough. Was I what Jack needed, or was I just a placeholder for the life he wanted to show off? The tension started to build, even before I realized it was happening. Little things. Comments here and there that didn't make sense at first, but began to feel like whispers of something deeper, something I wasn't ready to confront. It all started when we went shopping for furniture for our new place. Jack was excited, and I could see it in the way he pointed to different pieces, imagining how they would fit into our future home. But there was something else, something unsettling in the way he talked about everything. It was as if everything had to be perfect. It wasn't just about getting a couch or a coffee table, it was about presenting a lifestyle. "People will think we made it when they see this place," he said one afternoon after we picked out a few items. I looked at him, unsure how to respond. It wasn't like him to be so fixated on what others would think. I didn't say anything, but that comment stuck with me. Later that night, I was sitting on the couch, reflecting on everything that had happened in the past few months. I thought back to our engagement, to our plans, and how everything had been moving forward. But now it felt like something was missing. There was an undercurrent of dissatisfaction, of a desire to prove something, not to me, but to the world. One evening, a few weeks later, we were having dinner with some of Jack's friends. The conversation naturally turned to the wedding, and that's when the cracks began to show. "I just don't know if it's enough," Jack said, looking at me across the table. His words were casual, but his tone carried something heavier. His friends didn't seem to notice, but I did. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jack shifted in his chair. "I mean, look at us. We're doing all this wedding stuff, but we're still in the same place. Same car, same apartment." I felt my pulse quicken. I knew he'd been talking about upgrading our lifestyle, but hearing him say it out loud like this made it feel like an attack. I wasn't enough. What we had wasn't enough. I tried to brush it off, but Jack kept going. "You know, I want to give you everything you deserve, but we need to start thinking bigger. I don't want us to be stuck in this cycle of just getting by." His words stung. I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. I looked around at the group, who were all nodding in agreement, as if this was just a normal conversation. But for me, it felt like the walls were closing in. I didn't say anything after that. The rest of the night was a blur, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Jack had said. Was I not enough for him? Had all the years we spent together, all the plans we had made, been overshadowed by something so shallow as the need to keep up appearances? It was the first time I realized how much pressure Jack had been putting on me, pressuring me to fit into a mold, to live up to a standard I wasn't sure I even wanted. But I didn't know how to address it. He seemed so sure of what he wanted, and I didn't want to seem like I was holding him back. That night, as I lay in bed next to him, I could feel the distance between us. He was snoring lightly, unaware of the storm inside me. I reached for my phone and opened it, scrolling through pictures of us. The memories seemed so different now. The life we had built together felt like it was slipping away. I thought back to the first time Jack had proposed, how sure I had been of everything. But now, there was doubt. Doubt about who we were becoming and what he truly wanted. I was scared that the man I thought I knew was slowly being replaced by someone who cared more about status than love. I sat there staring at my phone. The message from Derek, Jack's best man, lingered in my mind. It didn't make sense. How had everything gone so wrong? Hey, I need to talk, Derek's message read. Jack doesn't know I'm reaching out, but I think you need to know. My heart raced. Why was Derek texting me? Why couldn't Jack just say whatever was bothering him himself? Was this some sort of joke? I couldn't even begin to understand what was going on. I quickly replied, my fingers trembling. What's going on? The next text came through, blunt and to the point. Jack's been having second thoughts. He's stressed about the wedding and questioning if you're the right person for his future. The words hit me like a slap. Jack? Having second thoughts? We'd been together for 4 years. Everything seemed fine. Why hadn't he told me this himself? Why was I hearing it from Derek? I felt a wave of nausea roll over me as I processed the message. This wasn't just about the wedding. This was about everything we had built together. If Jack was questioning our future, then everything I had believed in was suddenly in doubt. I didn't know what to do with this information. Second thoughts about what exactly? I typed quickly, needing to know more, needing answers. Derek's reply came shortly after. He feels like you're not really committed to the life he wants. He thinks you're still stuck in the same place, same car, same apartment. He needs to know you can provide the lifestyle he wants. I froze, my hands shaking as I read the words. Same car, same apartment. I wasn't perfect, but I had worked hard for everything I had. I had worked hard for us. I had always supported Jack, always encouraged him to go for the things he wanted. But now I felt like he was saying it wasn't enough. That who I was, what I had worked for, wasn't good enough for him. Derek's next message came through, almost like an ultimatum. If you really love him, you should show it. He's always wanted a Mercedes. If you buy him one as a pre-wedding gift, it would show him you're serious about building the future together. My heart stopped. A car? This was it? This was the test? A $45,000 car? I was shaking, the words on my phone swimming in front of me. Was this the price tag of our future? Was this what Jack thought I needed to prove? It wasn't about love, not anymore. It was about money, status. I tried to keep my composure, but I could feel my chest tightening, the pressure rising. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be what Jack really wanted. I had thought we were building a life together based on trust, love, and partnership. But now it felt like everything had been a lie. Everything I thought I knew about us seemed to be crumbling. I texted Derek back, my fingers stiff. Understood. That was all I could manage. What else was there to say? I sat there for what felt like an eternity, just staring at my phone. The anger and hurt surged within me, but I couldn't find the words to say. I felt completely blindsided. Finally, I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked over to the wedding venue. It had to be done. I had to stop this. Stop the wedding from happening before it was too late. I called the venue. Hi, this is Iris Mitchell. I'm calling about the Mitchell-Coleman wedding scheduled for September 15th, I said, trying to sound calm. Oh, yes, how can I help you? The person on the other end replied cheerfully. I need to cancel the reservation, I said, my voice steady but firm. Oh no, is everything okay? The woman on the other end sounded concerned. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Just so you know, the deposit is non-refundable at this point, she said. I understand, I replied. Please list the cancellation reason as financial extortion concerns. There was a brief pause on the other end. Excuse me? Financial extortion? Yes, I said, my voice firm. The reason for the cancellation is financial extortion concerns. The bride can contact you directly about the deposit. I hung up, my heart still racing. But it didn't stop there. I called the catering company, the photographer, the DJ, the florist, every single vendor. It was the same conversation every time. Please list the reason for the cancellation as financial extortion concerns. It felt surreal. I was canceling the wedding I had planned for months, the wedding that was supposed to mark the start of our life together. Once the calls were made, I texted my groomsmen in the group chat. Wedding's off. We'll explain later. Please don't reach out to Jack yet. Immediately, Derek responded, his concern clear. You good, bro? I'm perfect, I replied, trying to keep the calm, though I was anything but. Details tomorrow. I sat back, letting the silence fill the room. I had just canceled my wedding, and I didn't know what to feel. I couldn't help but wonder if I had just made the right decision, or had I just let something I thought was real slip away. The silence after I closed the phone was deafening. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to process what had just happened. My mind was a whirl of thoughts. Anger, confusion, disbelief. The wedding was canceled. Jack's entire view of our relationship had just been revealed, and now there was no going back. It wasn't just a cancellation, it was a statement, a boundary I had never thought I would need to set. The weight of it all finally hit me. The realization that I had just made the decision to end what I had believed to be the future I was building with Jack, a future I had worked so hard to create. But in the end, it was all about appearances to him, a Mercedes, a lifestyle. None of it had been about us, about love. It was about something else entirely. It was about a world I didn't want to be a part of. I wasn't sure how much time had passed when I picked up my phone again, my hands shaking. I needed to tell Derek what had happened. I quickly typed a message in our group chat, trying to keep my words clear, though my mind was clouded with a rush of emotion. "Wedding's off. We'll explain later. Please don't reach out to Jack yet." Within moments, Derek responded, "You good, bro?" The words felt like a lifeline, but they also made me feel more alone than ever. It wasn't about Jack anymore. It was about me. I was standing at the edge of everything I had ever wanted, and now I had no idea where to go next. "I'm perfect," I typed back, trying to mask the hurt I was feeling. I didn't even recognize the person I was becoming, but I couldn't let anyone see how broken I was. Details tomorrow. That's what I told myself. Tomorrow, I'd deal with it all. But right now, I had to let the dust settle. I sat back in my chair and just stared at the ceiling. Everything around me seemed to be frozen in place, even though I knew it was anything but. I had just canceled everything. The venue, the catering, the photographer. Every detail had been pulled apart in a matter of hours. I needed to think. I needed to make sense of it all. Why had Jack let it go this far? Was he really this shallow? Had I been blind all this time, thinking our connection was real, when in fact, I had been just another box to tick in his pursuit of a perfect life? The idea that he thought a $45,000 car would prove anything to me, that it would somehow prove I was worthy of him, crushed me. How had I not seen this coming? As the night dragged on, I realized I was too emotionally drained to even think about talking to Jack. What was there to say? What explanation could he possibly give that would make any of this okay? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't owe him anything. I had given everything to this relationship, and now it was clear that he wasn't asking for love. He wasn't asking for a future together. He was asking for proof of something that wasn't real. Finally, I stood up, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I walked to the window, looking out over the city, watching as the lights twinkled in the distance. I could hear the hum of traffic, the noise of the world moving on without me. I felt the silence in the apartment, thick and suffocating, and in that silence, I found clarity. This was the turning point. I had been holding on to something that wasn't even mine to hold. I had been trying to make it work, trying to force something that wasn't meant to be, but no more. I picked up my phone again and opened the messages with Derek. He had been there for me since the beginning. He had known the pressure Jack had been putting on me even before I had. "Wedding's off," I typed, hitting send before I could second-guess myself. "We'll explain everything later, but I'm done." The finality of those words hit me harder than I expected, but it was done. There was no going back. The next few days were a blur. I barely slept, my mind racing with what had happened. The wedding, the life I thought I was building with Jack, was suddenly a shattered dream. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was the same thing. The image of Jack asking for a car, for a Mercedes, as if that was all it took to prove love. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just been another stepping stone in his pursuit of status and validation. Jack hadn't reached out at first, and I told myself I was relieved. I needed space. But as the days passed, I began to feel the weight of his absence. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about everything I thought I knew about him. How could I have been so blind? I was sitting at my desk on the third day after the cancellation when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jack. I stared at it for a moment before opening it, unsure what to expect. The words were short, clipped, and filled with an urgency I hadn't expected. "I need to talk to you," the text read. "Please, let's meet. I'm sorry for everything." I stared at the message, feeling a wave of frustration rise in me. After everything that had happened, he thought he could just waltz back into my life and fix everything with an apology? The nerve. I quickly typed back, my fingers shaking. "We're done, Jack. There's nothing left to say." It wasn't what I wanted to say, not really, but I was tired. I was tired of pretending that things could go back to normal. tired of wondering if he was just apologizing because he was sorry, or if he was apologizing because his carefully constructed life was crumbling without me. I had to be firm. I put the phone down and leaned back in my chair, the weight of the decision sinking in. I thought about everything I had been through with Jack, the way he had made me feel loved and important in the beginning, the way we had talked about the future, about building something together. But in the end, it wasn't about that at all. It was about appearances, about the life he wanted to show off to the world. I had to stop caring about what he thought. I had to stop letting him define my worth. But as much as I told myself I was done, part of me still wondered, had I overreacted? Maybe I should have given him a chance to explain. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. The self-doubt crept in, despite everything I had learned in the past few days. I didn't have to wonder for long. Less than an hour later, Jack was standing at my door. I hadn't heard him knock, but I knew who it was the moment I saw him through the peephole. I couldn't bring myself to open the door right away, so I just stood there, staring at the reflection of myself in the hallway mirror. I knew he was out there. I knew this was it. The confrontation I had been avoiding, the one I wasn't ready for. When I finally opened the door, Jack looked different, haggard, worn out. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a nervous energy I hadn't seen before. He didn't even speak at first. He just stood there, looking at me like he wasn't sure where to begin. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice almost pleading. "I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't say anything. My thoughts were racing, but I was silent. I needed to hear him out, even though everything in me wanted to shut him out completely. "I thought I wanted all of it, the car, the house, the lifestyle," Jack continued, his voice breaking. "But I was wrong. I was an idiot." I didn't trust myself to speak. I just stood there, waiting for him to finish. He had to say something that could make sense of everything. But his words didn't help. "I don't want that life anymore," he said, taking a step forward. "I want you. I want us." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But everything in me screamed that this wasn't real. The man standing before me wasn't the person I had loved. He wasn't the person I had built a future with. This was someone else, someone who had used me to get what he wanted, and now, when everything had collapsed, was trying to put the pieces back together. "I can't just forget what happened, Jack," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "You've shown me who you really are, and I don't know if I can trust you anymore." His face twisted with pain, and for a moment I thought he might collapse right there. "Please," he begged, "just give me a chance to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." I shook my head slowly. "I can't. I've already made my decision." Jack's expression shifted, a mixture of frustration and confusion. "You can't be serious," he said, his voice rising. "You're throwing everything away over a misunderstanding?" I took a deep breath. "No, Jack. I'm not throwing everything away. You are." The silence between us grew heavy, thick with unspoken words. I could feel the weight of everything that had been said and unsaid hanging in the air, and as much as I had tried to ignore it, it was clear to me now that our love had never been enough for him. It had always been about the things, about proving something to the world. I wasn't willing to be part of that anymore. "Goodbye, Jack," I said, my voice breaking as I spoke the words I knew I had to say. Without another word, I closed the door, leaving him standing there. I didn't look back. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. I had made the decision to walk away, to stop trying to fix something that was never going to work. But even with the decision made, the ache of loss was unbearable. I couldn't stop thinking about the wedding, the one I had canceled, the life I had imagined with Jack, now shattered in pieces I couldn't even put together. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, pleading for me to believe him, to give him another chance. But I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Not after the way he had treated me, like I was just another thing to be fixed. I thought that after all the calls, the cancellations, the drama, it would be over. But it wasn't. Every moment felt like a constant reminder of what I had lost. I couldn't move forward, not yet. I couldn't even think straight. I spent the next few days in a haze of exhaustion and anger. I wasn't just angry at Jack, though. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for ignoring the signs, for letting him manipulate me into believing we were something we weren't. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, the wedding invitations, the canceled reservations, the bouquet I'd never carry down the aisle. Each item felt like a knife to the chest. I was drowning in everything I thought I had wanted. Every piece of it was a constant reminder of how everything had unraveled. Then came the first message from Jack's mother, Patricia. I had been avoiding all contact with him, with his family, but when her name popped up on my phone, I couldn't bring myself to ignore it. It rang through once, then twice, and then she left a voicemail. I hesitated for a moment before listening. Her voice was frantic, shaky. "Iris, please, we need to talk. Jack is a mess. He's been calling me all day. He doesn't understand what happened, and he's just spiraling. Please, just listen to him. He's really sorry for everything." I pressed pause. Jack was sorry? Sorry for what? For manipulating me into thinking I wasn't enough? Sorry for threatening the relationship we built? Sorry for asking for a $45,000 car as some kind of love test? I deleted the message and blocked her number. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to hear their excuses, their justifications, their version of the truth. They had their version of events, and I had mine. And in my version, I wasn't the one who was wrong. But despite everything, I still felt something inside me break. A few hours later, I received another message. It was from Derek, my best man, the one person who seemed to understand what I was going through. He had been my friend before all this, and I trusted him more than anyone. "Hey, Iris, I know things are tough right now, but I want you to know I'm here for you. I don't know what Jack was thinking, but I know you. You're better than this. Don't let him drag you back into his world. You deserve more than that. Let's talk soon." His words brought some comfort, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. Nothing could take away the hurt I felt in the pit of my stomach. I had walked away from the man I thought I would spend my life with, and despite everything, I couldn't stop the feeling of loss. I spent the next few days wrapped up in my thoughts, wondering if I had made the right choice. But I had to remind myself over and over, this wasn't about me being wrong. This wasn't about me making a rash decision. I had set a boundary, and that boundary was not negotiable. But as much as I tried to convince myself, there was still a part of me that doubted. Was I being too harsh? Was I letting my anger cloud my judgment? But deep down, I knew the truth. Jack had shown me who he was. He had shown me that it wasn't about love. It was about control, status, appearances. And no matter how much I loved him, no matter how many times I convinced myself that we could work it out, the truth was that we couldn't. I could hear Jack's voice in my head, still pleading. "Please, Iris, you're everything I've ever wanted." But it didn't matter anymore. His words didn't change the reality. I was still standing here, alone, picking up the pieces of my life that he had left behind. And somehow, in the middle of the pain, I realized something important. I was stronger than I thought. I was capable of moving on, and I would. I would find my way again. It had been nearly a week since I'd canceled the wedding. The days were slowly bleeding into each other, filled with silence and a constant low hum of uncertainty. I had convinced myself that I was fine, that I had made the right choice, but there was still a part of me that wondered if I was just being stubborn. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear Jack's voice, his words repeating in my head, "Please, Iris, you're everything I've ever wanted." But I wasn't the same person anymore. I had to remind myself of that every single day. This wasn't about love. This was about power and control, and I wouldn't let him have that over me any longer. I was sitting in my apartment trying to distract myself with work when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, my heart immediately dropping when I saw Jack's name. He hadn't contacted me since the day I ended things, but it seemed he wasn't done trying to fix everything. I almost didn't open the message. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. I tapped it open. "Please, Iris, I need to see you. We need to talk. This is not how I wanted things to end. Please let me explain." His words were pleading, but they felt empty. He had already tried to explain, already tried to manipulate me into believing his version of the truth. But I was no longer the same woman who had been so desperate to fix everything. I had learned the hard way. I sat there for a moment, feeling the tension between my desire to confront him and my desire to move on. I knew I had to face him, that this conversation needed to happen, if only to prove to myself that I wasn't running away from the truth. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed support. I needed to know I wasn't making this decision in a vacuum. I grabbed my phone and texted Derek, "I need to talk to you." It didn't take long for him to respond. "I'm here for you. Whatever you need, just say the word." His words brought a small sense of comfort, but it wasn't enough to calm my nerves. I was about to face the man who had broken my heart, the man I thought I'd spend my life with. How was I supposed to be strong when everything in me still longed for the life we had planned? That evening, I agreed to meet Jack. We chose a small cafe near my apartment, a place that felt neutral, where I wouldn't have to face the weight of our past in a more intimate setting. When I arrived, Jack was already there, sitting at a table near the window. His posture was stiff, his hands fidgeting with a napkin, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered everything. I remembered the lies, the manipulations, the demands that had driven me to this point. There was no room for pity anymore. I walked over to the table and sat down across from him. He looked up, and for the first time since all of this started, I saw vulnerability in his eyes. His usual bravado was gone, replaced by something softer. But was it real, or was this just another act? "I'm sorry," Jack said quietly. His voice was low, almost unrecognizable. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't respond right away. I needed to hear more from him before I could make any decisions. But part of me already knew the damage had been done. "I didn't know what I wanted," Jack continued, his voice shaking. "I thought if I could show you the world, I could prove that I was the man you needed. But I was wrong. I was selfish. I didn't see how it hurt you until now." His words hit me in waves. A part of me wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that he had truly learned something, that he had truly changed. But the rational part of me knew better. It was too late. "Jack," I said, my voice steady but firm, "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending like everything is okay when I know it's not. You've shown me who you really are, and I can't ignore that anymore." His face fell, and I saw the pain in his eyes. But I also saw something else, a hint of anger. It was subtle, hidden beneath the surface, but it was there. "I don't understand," he said, his voice growing more desperate. "You're just going to throw everything away, after everything we've been through?" "I'm not throwing it away," I said, my heart pounding. "I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my future, and I can't have you in it if you're only going to pull me down with you." Jack looked away for a moment, collecting himself. When he looked back, his expression had changed. It was a mix of frustration and hurt, but there was also a determination in his eyes. "I won't give up on us," he said, his voice firm. "I'll keep fighting for you, Iris. I know I made mistakes, but I'll fix them." I shook my head slowly. "You don't get it, Jack. You can't fix this. This isn't something you can buy your way out of. It's not about a car or a house or anything else. It's about what we were and what we're not anymore." The silence between us was heavy, and for a long time neither of us spoke. I knew what I had to do, but it didn't make it any easier. Finally, I stood up from the table, my heart heavy with the weight of what I was leaving behind. "Goodbye, Jack," I said quietly. "I hope you find what you're looking for, but I can't be part of it." He didn't say anything as I turned and walked away, and this time I didn't look back. The days after I walked away from Jack felt like I was floating through life. It was as if everything I had known had been pulled from beneath me, and I was left standing in a new world I hadn't fully learned to navigate yet. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I kept replaying our conversation in my mind, but each time the same thought echoed louder than the last. I had done the right thing. But that didn't stop the guilt from creeping in. I'd made the decision to cut ties, to walk away from someone I had spent years with, and yet I still found myself questioning if I was making a mistake. Was I being too harsh? Had I been too quick to judge? Was there any part of him that deserved a second chance? But as the days passed, those questions became quieter and quieter. I didn't need to keep asking myself if I had made the right choice. I had. I had chosen myself, and that was something I had never done before. It wasn't long before the fallout started. Jack's calls came first, then the texts, and finally the voice messages. But none of them changed anything. He was still trying to convince me that he hadn't meant what he said, that he was sorry, that he would do anything to fix it. I didn't respond. Then, Jack's mother, Patricia, started texting me. Her messages were full of guilt and sorrow, trying to convince me to reconsider. She made it clear that Jack was struggling, that he was a mess without me. I ignored her texts as well. I didn't owe her an explanation. I had given enough to that family. It was my turn to stand up for myself. The next day, I received a message from Derek. "I'm so sorry, Iris," it read. "Jack is beside himself. He says you're making a huge mistake." I was sitting at my kitchen table, the message staring back at me, my fingers frozen on the screen. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't need Derek to tell me what Jack was feeling. I knew. Jack had always been the type to manipulate the situation, to try to make people feel sorry for him, but not this time, not with me. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I typed back. "I made the right decision, Derek. I'm sorry, but I can't keep doing this. It's over." The words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much I still cared about Derek's opinion, how much his validation meant to me. But I had to do this. I couldn't go back to a life where I was constantly questioning my worth. The following days were filled with more messages from Jack's friends, from his family, all trying to convince me to take him back, to give him another chance. But none of it worked. I knew what I had to do. Then came the social media posts. I had seen it coming, but it still stung. Jack posted a long, emotional message about how he had been betrayed and how his world was falling apart. He painted me as the villain in the story, making it seem like I was the one who had broken everything. His followers piled in with supportive comments, calling me selfish and immature. The posts flooded my feed, the comments pouring in, making me feel like I was being dragged through the mud, but I refused to engage. I took a deep breath and posted my response. A single screenshot, one that showed the text from Derek where he had told me that Jack needed a Mercedes or the wedding would be off. I posted it with a simple caption, "This is why I walked away." The comments shifted almost immediately. People started questioning Jack's intentions. His friends, the ones who had supported him, started to distance themselves. The tide was turning, but I felt empty. The damage had already been done. My reputation, my heart, had already been broken. But this was the first step toward healing. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for, a public apology, a reconciliation, a recognition of what Jack had done. But none of that came. Instead, what I got was silence. And in that silence, I realized something. I didn't need validation from anyone else. I didn't need Jack or his family or his friends to tell me I had made the right choice. I already knew. The hardest part came when I realized that I still had to move forward. I still had to live my life, with all of this weighing on me. But as the days passed, I began to feel lighter. Every day that I stood firm in my decision, every time I told myself that I deserved better, I felt a little stronger. I had chosen myself, and that was something I hadn't done in a long time. I kept telling myself that this was the last time I would let someone else define my worth. This was the last time I would let someone manipulate me into staying in a relationship where I wasn't respected. Then came the call from my lawyer. Jack had apparently reached out to one of his cousins who worked in law, trying to force me to return the wedding deposits. But this time I wasn't the one who was worried. I had saved all the texts, all the proof I needed to show that I wasn't in the wrong. My lawyer handled it. Jack's cousin was forced to back down, and I realized that for once I was in control. The final blow came when I got a text from Jack a few days later, but this time there was no pleading. No requests for another chance, just a message that read, "I hope you realize what you've thrown away." I read the message, not feeling a single pang of regret. I had already made my peace with everything. It's been weeks since the wedding was called off. Weeks since I stood there, watching Jack walk away from the life we thought we'd build together. There have been moments when the silence in my apartment feels suffocating, when the loneliness creeps in like an old friend, and I wonder if I made the right choice. But those moments are fleeting now. Every day, I feel a little stronger, a little more certain that I did the right thing. I've taken the time to focus on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I've thrown myself into work, into the things I love, the things that make me feel alive, the things that make me feel whole again. And for the first time in a long while, I'm starting to feel like me again. I've reconnected with friends who had faded into the background, people who reminded me of the woman I was before Jack, before the constant need to prove myself. I've found joy in the small things, going for long walks in the park, reading books without the guilt of leaving things unfinished, taking time to just breathe. The hardest part wasn't walking away from Jack. It was letting go of the dream we'd built together. It was accepting that the person I thought I knew was never truly who he was. He wanted a life that was built on appearances, a life where status and possessions defined worth. And I couldn't be a part of that anymore. I wasn't going to lose myself for someone else's version of happiness. There are still days when I doubt myself, days when I question whether I did the right thing. But the truth is, I have never felt more free. Free from the weight of other people's expectations, free from the idea that my worth is determined by what I can give or how much I can show the world. I am enough, just as I am. Jack is still out there, living his life, and maybe, one day, he'll figure out that love can't be bought. Maybe he'll learn that the most important things in life can't be measured in cars or houses or the approval of others. But I'm not waiting for that day. I'm not waiting for him to realize what he lost. I'm moving forward, and I'm doing it for me. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest lesson of all. That my happiness doesn't depend on anyone but me. I deserve love, respect, and a life built on what truly matters. And that's exactly what I'm going to have.